Good morning, good morning, good morning. Okay, all right, good morning first off, and how you guys doing? I'm your host, BMT, and I'm definitely going to be doing this conversation with you guys uh, on that of a topic that I was very curious about, and it leads around something and it's a question. It's not really too long about it. It's no secret that a lot of people come from broken, misguided homes. Okay, that's a very fair thing to say. Um, it's very unpleasant, uh, but it's something that we have to actually take into account. We have to actually just look at it and say, hey, this is actually a thing that's happening. And when we're now that we're in this type of environment, I asked the question, earnestly, did any of your mothers teach you how to seek or find a woman with a purpose? Now, a lot of people saying, well, hold on now. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean by find a woman with a purpose? Like, could you be more specific? And I'm like, it actually is what it is. Like, I holistically believe that a lot of black men were not trained and reared on finding a woman with a purpose. A lot of black men weren't trained and reared in that type of fashion to look for that type of woman. And a lot of people can say, well, no, that's not true. Like, uh, you know, because we'll hear a lot about fathers teach your son to be better. But how can a father teach his boy to be better if he never knew what to actually look for or see as that of an honorable or desirable woman? And I say that genuinely I say that genuinely out of my heart, of that of concern and care. Like, if I like, I'm gonna be honest, man. Like, the most I heard about certain women of virtue was that of growing up in the church. That's when I started hearing about women of virtue was in church. It wasn't really a thing that was like talked about or preached upon. It wasn't really a thing that was talked about, preached upon to like young men. It just wasn't a thing. And so, because it wasn't a really big promotion, because a lot of young women, and I think this is something that's actually very true, were young women at the time coming up through the 70s and 80s, and don't talk about that umbawa by power stuff. Like, I don't think a lot of women. This is why I always had the question about it. Were a lot of women taught to go have a purpose in life? I mean, other than just having children, and you'll have men say, "Well, that's your primary function, is just to have babies," and I'm like, "Damn, if that's your primary function, then shit, just to push out babies, and then I think that pretty much sucks. If that's your predominant function, is to just have push out kids and just run off and just be at home, that sucks. Like, I don't agree. And y'all gonna say, well, dang, BMT, what are you talking about? Because in this kind of terraforming like world, like, it's hard. It's hard. And I don't have a problem with a woman having a sense of purpose to want to do things like science or math or engineer or build things. Like, maybe I'm more forward thinking. I know some guys will like, no, BMT, we need them in the home. But I'm like, okay, I hear you with that, but you can do both you can actually you can do both and be very successful. And I think that's a problem that a lot of people, like, I know this is going to be a controversial conversation, but a lot of young women were not holistically taught to. I mean, now they are. Now it's overly pushed. It's definitely pushed where the women are told to dream. Young men are always going to dream. Young men were always going to dream. I'm not going to go on this Antoine Fisher narrative that, oh man, like black boys are not told to go dream or go do stuff. I'm not going to go by that narrative because that holistically is not true. Like, you got a lot of boys running out there trying to be in NBA basketball. They want to go be entrepreneurs, business owners, the whole works. So I'm not going to say that, young men don't want to dream or have a sense of purpose, but I'm going to also be fair and say that if it was a young mom who never really understood her own self value or what she was worth, I think I know we hear a lot about high value men, but we don't ever holistically talk about high value people. People with a sense of purpose and duty that actually, like, can shake the room. We don't talk about those type of people like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But see, a lot of sons who were born from the welfare era, and what I mean by welfare era, that was at a time when welfare was rampant. There was a lot of jobs that were being shut down. A lot of people were getting on government programs. It was pretty much, it was like a strugglation. I'm It was not an easy time. So in saying all of that, and I just want y'all to think about this. A lot of black boys were not trained and taught how to properly actually, and see, we'll hear a lot about, well, the father. And I said, well, whatever parent is in a home could have started giving the lesson. Mamas, you told your sons, watch out for them hoes, but you never told them what type of prototype we're to go after. I mean, you don't get me wrong. Like, there'll be women that say, well, I told my son about these fast women because that's all she knew. But mama didn't know anything about purpose. Mama didn't know anything about purpose. Mama didn't know anything about actually having some type of position about building. This is why this divestment era is happening the way it's happening now, so radical and so crazy. Because the daughter system that is coming in now, it's a self, like, hey, like, what I'm doing for myself, versus, hey, like, I'm building with a purpose. And you have a lot of people who, they have their own self-contained interest of how they want the family to look, how they want it to be. You're gonna have a lot of that. You're gonna have a lot of that. I'm just being honest. But holistically, I mean, but I'm hearing a lot of dudes talking about the traditional women, and I got to be honest. A lot of y'all dudes are not traditional men. Y'all are products of welfare, broken homes, broken communities. A good portion of y'all. So yeah, I get the merit of talking about I get the merit of talking about, hey, we want the women to return to the home, but a lot of dudes weren't taught holistically how to build a home. And they'll say, well, whose fault is that? See, everybody's looking for somebody to blame in the blame game scheme. They're all looking for somebody, someone to call upon to say, this is the reason why we are the way we are. You may not know how to build a home, but you can have a concept of a mindset of, hey, because of how bad it was during this, I know not to do that. That's common sense. That's common sense. The angry snowman, I don't know what he's saying, but okay. But I'm sure he's out there. I don't know why I can't see him. But if you came up in a broken home, then you should have some holistic idea of, hey, I haven't seen a proper home setting, but I understand that this is what you don't do. So the narrative of, well, because we were born in this, that sounds like a cop out excuse. And I gotta be for real. Okay, so you knew about the wild woman, the wild child. You knew about how certain types of actions of women they got down, how they portrayed and behaved. Okay, I will give you that. I knew what type of archetype of woman did not work. I knew that. I knew that. I understood that. I had a mindset of understanding that, hey, that I had a mindset of understanding that, hey, that my mom was so busy with just trying to do survival. Four children, you know what I'm saying? There was different issues that had happened in my home, and so it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. And you'll hear as well, give the child to the father. Okay, let's be honest about that. There were children that did know where their dad was at, and their dad weren't trying to put them on like that. We're not going to pretend that all the dads just disappeared. That's not true because we can pull up a lot of pictures of fathers. Some were good, some were bad. But one thing that we can't, and I see people like to use the cop out excuse, well, the system, then I'm gonna be like, then why, if you are that of a person, why didn't you configure your own system? Be it good or bad, you could have made a system in your image. You could have chose to do better. You could have chose to maneuver differently. My parents gave me away. Okay, I get it. Your parents move. Now what? You're a grown person. You're gonna have to go. You're gonna have to start moving and fighting through that. The problem that we have going on in society, uh, especially with a lot of young men that were grown that grew up through their teen moms, is tasting and that is having that taste of understanding that I wasn't properly taught to look for a woman purpose. I wasn't given the best discernment skills. Now, mama told you about watch out for these harlots, these fast women, these loose women. Yes, mama told you about that. She did. mean, I made a lot of bad. I did. Hang on, let me cam up. Yeah, I made a lot of bad choices when I was younger. Chose a lot of women I shouldn't have chose. Taking part in a lot of activities. Yeah, I went to church. Yeah, I knew about the Bible. I knew about that of the virtues of a woman, but I never understood to date or seek after a woman with purpose. And see, that's something that even in these spaces on social media, if you honestly be honest, none of these spaces on social media teach that of a man to go after a woman with a purpose. They'll say goals, but not a purpose. Goals and a purpose are not quite the same. Goals and purpose are not the same. Some people say yes, they are. No, they're not. My purpose and my goals are not. They're not the same. My purpose is why I do what I do, why I maneuver the way I maneuver, why I act certain things, why I see or actually judge or how I am. And when it comes to family, myself, my mentality, I understand that of my purpose. It's no different than when Zod told Superman, "You took from me my purpose, my reason to protect." And see, that's why people right now running on social media doing what they're doing. They're searching for a purpose. And so when a lot of these men are running around looking for a woman, are they looking for a woman with a purpose? And when they're not, then they'll just take anything that they can get. And it's hell on high waters. I made a lot of mistakes. I've fallen from grace plenty of times. But however, doesn't mean I couldn't try again. So tell me what y'all think. This is BMT coming at you again. Peace.